Hello, YouTube!
Hey, Internet.
Welcome to Bourbon and Zeppelins. I'm David.
I'm Jeremy.
This is The Gist.
The Gist.
If you're new to The Gist, Jeremy, what's The Gist? Give them the gist of The Gist.
The Gist of The Gist is where we take current event news stories of the day and we give you the gist of them. We give you the broad strokes. We give you the broad idea of what the topic might be talking to. It's usually generally wholly, entirely uninformed, and we do a little bit of fact-checking if we really get into it.
We have a real high-level understanding of the headlines, and we form our opinions on that.
We generally just judge the book by its cover.
We're awful people when it comes to this sort of thing.
Apparently.
So a couple of big stories.
What do we got?
It's been an exciting week. Now, normally, and now I know that, not everyone watches every show.
You keep using that word.
I know, it's always abnormal. Every week, we're not doing the normal thing.
Is it exciting?
I say normally, we try to avoid talking about Donald Trump in any sort of capacity.
If at all possible.
It is really, really impossible to do that this week. I think we have to talk about.
He has been,
This has been I don't want to say a rough week for him because I don't like him, but I'll be kind.
It's been a rough week for him.
It's been a rougher week than usual for Donald Trump.
Well, and it should be.
Oh yeah. He brought this on himself. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I haven't switched over to the story yet. Jeremy will drop the story into the old chatteroo for those of you watching on Facebook. And if you're not watching on Facebook, you should. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, facebook.com/Bourbon and Zeppelins. You can join in on the fun.
There we go.
So Trump and Putin had a meeting.
Closed door meeting.
Well, so the real problem happened, I don't know if it was before or after that, but they had a press conference in Helsinki.
Putin and Trump.
Yes.
Okay.
Side by side. Friends
Amigo
and neighbors.
amigo.
Mano y mano?
Mano y mano.
Holding hands? I don't know. Anyways, so...
Together forever.
An American reporter at some point stood up and asked the question of Donald Trump. It was a two-part question. Part one, all of your intelligence communities have told you that the Russians have interfered or had interfered in the 2016 elections. Vladimir Putin disputes that. Do you support your intelligence community and the conclusions that they made? I'm paraphrasing a bit here, obviously.
Who do you agree
because
with?
Who would ask a question phrased the way I just phrased it? Basically, they're asking...
No journalist, hopefully.
Yeah. So basically, they're asking, do you believe your intelligence community, who have 100% decided that Putin or the Russians had interfered in the election? Or do you believe Vladimir Putin, who is maybe a war criminal, not quite a dictator president for life?
Hey, he's an autocrator.
He's an autocrat, and he recently invaded the Ukraine. Which is
Crimea.
Sure, just Crimea.
Swallow.
And he got the Russian national soccer team all the way to the quarterfinals of the World Cup.
That's true. Definitely, if Russia's fixed anything, it was FIFA.
Anywho,
that was garbage.
So that was part one of the question. Part two of the question was... now that you're on this international stage, do you denounce the actions of Russia meddling in the election?
Allegedly.
Assuming you believe... assuming the answer to part one is I believe the intelligence community, which is what I think everyone expected him to say.
What? Really? Oh.
That is the correct presidential answer, is to say, yes, I trust the people
that's a
that
different
work
question.
For me. Well...
I absolutely expected him to double down on.
Right. So he said
there was no meddling.
Quote here. Anyways, so his response was, I don't see any reason why they would
meddle in the election.
Yeah. No. What is it? I don't. I don't. I can't remember
This
the exact
is why we
quote.
call it the gist, folks.
Yeah, I don't really. Oh, there's probably a link somewhere that where I can find it. But basically, he used the word "would," and it was, I don't have any reason to think that they would have been involved. Is I think actually what the quote is, and then So, and then he was fine with that answer. And then he went on to sort of, praise Putin in other ways. So he leaves the press conference, on cloud nine, thinking everything went well. Meanwhile, the world is burning while he's on Air Force One on his flight.
They are going berserk bonkers
Yeah.
that he threw the intelligence agencies under the bus.
Yeah, he did not back up his Team USA, and was on suddenly like pro-Putin. Not suddenly, I mean, he's been pro-Putin since whatever, forever, as long as I've known him, as close as we are.
You know him?
Yeah, doesn't everybody? We all know a little Donnie J. And anyways, so he lands. I guess apparently he wasn't watching the news on the plane.
On Air Force One.
He gets home and realizes that everyone's very angry with him, and he's really confused as to why. So the next day, he comes out with a statement saying, "Oh, no. Sorry, when I said I misspoke. I know I said I don't see any reason why they would have meddled in the election. What I meant to say was I don't see any reason why they wouldn't have been the ones to meddle in the election." Right? So he just dropped the NT at the end of wouldn't and turned it into would, thereby changing the entire meaning of that sentence.
Right.
Now, a lot of people buy this. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. A lot of Trump supporters, and I mean like real hardcore Trump supporters, buy this.
Like
Like the Republicans in the states are like, new. This is
No,
very problematic. So there's bigger problems here, because if the only
What?
thing that you heard from that press conference was that one sentence where he said wouldn't, and he goes, "Oh no, or sorry," when he said would, and then he goes, "No, I only meant wouldn't," you'd be like, "Oh, he misspoke. I misspoke. That happens all the time."
whatever, sure. Okay.
But he also, the second part of that sentence is how he believed Putin's denial. He's like, Putin denied it very strongly, and I believe him. He also had several comments and speeches throughout the summit, all reinforcing the U.S. shares blame for the relationship. There's a follow-up interview where he doubles down on everything with Sean Hannity.
Right.
He's still, obviously attacking the Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he's trying to backpedal. He's doing a clumsy job of it.
Right. So Republicans don't trust him anymore. Like Democrats never trusted him, obviously.
No.
But now more and more Republicans are like, maybe this is not worth it.
You don't.
Worth whatever I've been gaining from this. This is no longer worth it. They're starting to use the word treason and traitor. They're throwing those around.
I don't understand that.
Well, traitor I get. Like, I'm not saying that he committed treason in what he said, but I will say that he is showing traitorous tendencies.
He just always just acts to his own benefit. I mean, that's not
right, but at the expense of the country that he leads.
what expense.
Well, he's basically saying whatever they did is fine by me. You can do whatever you want. I don't believe my intelligence agency. He's undermining everything that Americans don't want him to undermine. Now, I'm not an American. I can't really speak for them. So, I guess, what I think people, the way that I think Americans picture America, they expect their president to uphold certain values and beliefs. And one of those things still, and maybe it's a holdover from the Cold War, is that, if we think that Russia did something bad, we, stand up to them and say, hey, stop doing bad things. Like one of his heroes that he always talks about is Ronald Reagan. What did Ronald Reagan say to Gorbachev? Tear down that wall. He was very direct and assertive about it, and he didn't kowtow to a Russian leader.
Right.
Everyone looks at what Trump did at that press conference and sees it as sort of bending the knee a little bit to Putin and giving him a pass on everything.
Yeah, see, I think it's stretching it a little to say that he's giving Putin a pass.
I don't think it is, because he's not. He clearly didn't try to hold him accountable.
Because he doesn't believe Putin did anything.
Right, because that's why he gave him a pass. But he should.
No, there's a no.
He should be trusting. He should be trusting.
No, those are totally different things. Hang on a second. If Putin if he doesn't believe that Putin did anything, then there's nothing to give him a pass
Why
on.
doesn't? Yeah, but why doesn't he believe it?
Oh, that's something
Putin
different.
Told him not to, because Putin told him he didn't do it, despite the fact every intelligence agency in the States told him that he did.
Right, okay, but the point is what he believes
And why? Who
and
told
why.
him to believe
Okay,
it?
so right.
So if
what
he's doing things, if he's just believing everything Putin tells him, is that not traitorous in some respect?
No, that in and of itself isn't traitorous. It's maybe stupid, but. And again, this is the.
What if he's doing things that Putin tells him to do? What if he's making decisions because Putin says...
Oh, that's traitorous.
Okay. So you don't think that this is maybe indicative of something like that? That he's not showing behavior? He's shown behavior throughout his whole election cycle and presidency of being very forgiving to Russia and being very on side with Russia. He supports them in their invasion of, Crimea and Ukraine, whatever you want to call it. He does. He says it's fine. They all speak Russian there, so they're Russia. They belong to Russia.
Oh, man.
I'm not even making that up. What else?
We should be pretty nervous then, hey?
Yeah, right? Well, we don't speak Russia. We're fine. We don't speak Russia? Wow.
That's enough for you.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. My point is, if he thought I would be really upset if, well...
He called the
whatever.
EU a foe. You know who else thinks the EU is a foe?
Russia?
Russia.
Yeah. This is just... I feel like this is just him bumbling around.
Is accidental treason more acceptable than
It totally is.
meditated treason?
Absolutely. That's the difference between first and manslaughter, right?
Yeah, and I've had this argument before that I think people who accidentally kill people are a bigger threat to society than people who
stumbled into that, and I categorically disagree with you there.
I know you agree with me, or you disagree with me.
Did I say disagree?
You did.
Okay,
and
good.
then I said agree, and then I corrected myself.
Good. Okay, so we're on the same page. Anyway,
I know what you said. So the world's melting down about Trump, and
people are blowing up about stuff that Trump did.
He's
and
backpedaling and
it may or may not be a big
doubling
deal,
down, and
but almost certainly not a big deal.
Who knows? I didn't even switch to camera 2 for that.
Camera 2?
That's okay.
Oh,
though.
you didn't even show them that? It doesn't
Whatever.
matter. That's the.
Okay.
Okay.
If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm gonna try first of all to remember to upload this episode.
How about?
How about I do that?
You hit record, right?
I'm just double checking that actually. Now that I've said this, I'm recording. We're
Okay, good.
And
So,
I will, like, when I post the episode, I will post the link to the articles that we're talking about in the
so not just Facebook can see it.
in the
Comments
what do you call
below.
it? The description, the show description.
In the description below.
Yes, the
Yeah,
description
that
that might be below. It depends what year you're watching this in. Who knows what the YouTube layout's going to look like in 2023
When people finally find this video.
when people finally find us.
Anyway, moving on.
By then we'll be on like episode 47 or something.
I'm going to be out of town that much.
Yeah. So the next headline, and this isn't the headline of the actual article that we're going to post. This is the headline of the article that linked to this article, and it was a better headline than this because the headline to the article that we're talking about is just Zuckerberg, the Recode interview. But the other headline was Zuckerberg, Holocaust deniers aren't intentionally getting it wrong. So the article we're going to post is actually a very long interview that Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook.
This one?
That's the one.
Okay.
Did with a Recode reporter, Kara Swisher. And partway through, they start talking about Facebook's role in news and news dissemination. This was a big thing, also because of the Russian interference in the election. There was a lot of stuff being shared on Facebook that got traced back to Russian intelligence, as sort of stemming from there. A lot of memes that were like lock Hillary up and stuff like that, like anti-Hillary memes. A lot of those were coming out of Russia. And Facebook was big on sort of like news articles would come out and they would show up in like the trending news feeds, and people would start to see it. And so they took a lot of criticism for stuff about that. So partway through this conversation, the interviewer starts asking questions like, would you, if people are lying, like just like saying things that are factually incorrect on Facebook, would you kick them off of Facebook? And so Zuckerberg basically gives the example of Holocaust deniers.
That's an interesting one to jump to.
He's Jewish.
Okay.
Right? And this is why he picked this. He's like, from his standpoint, he's Jewish and he understands that obviously the Holocaust happened, but he doesn't believe that someone who has a page on Facebook that sort of promotes the idea, someone believes that the Holocaust wasn't real, they aren't intentionally trying to mislead other people. They're just ignorant. And he's like, you can't kick people off of a platform just because they're ignorant. He does draw a line in the sand. He does say if they're harassing people,
yeah,
they're going to attack people because they're Jewish or whatever. He's like, that is different, and that is the kind of thing that you would be removed from Facebook for. Now
for attacking Jewish.
Well, for
Jews.
harassing people, yes. In this particular example he gave, yes, for attacking Jewish people on Facebook,
right,
or harassing them on Facebook, however you want to phrase it.
Sure, yeah.
And but he does make a really interesting point that you can't just remove people from a platform just because they're ignorant of what facts are. I mean, let's be real, if we kicked people off of the internet for making mistakes, unintentional mistakes, no one would be left on the internet.
What a wonderful internet that would be.
Barren wasteland.
That would be fantastic.
It would be non-existent.
I wouldn't be there.
Nobody would be there. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. That's not hyperbole. It would be empty. It would be like heaven.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's the problem with what he said? Who's taking issue with it?
I don't know if anyone is. I just thought it was interesting to talk about. So, sorry, to relate this back to the news stuff.
I was like getting ready for like.
Sorry, no, I meant to relate this back to the news stuff. So, what he's doing is for stuff where things like this show up that are factually incorrect, whether it's, denying things like, the Holocaust or Sandy Hook or, whatever.
The moon landing.
Moon landing, things like that. Those articles get weighted differently, and so they wind up lower on the old list, the old feed list.
Feed list, which begs another question: what do you think about the fact that Facebook gets to rank what you see stuff, so they get to shape?
Well, they've already been doing it, and that was
right.
one of the things that really became that people were really complaining about. I don't think there's a way. I don't know if there's a way around it.
Well, to not weight stuff? You just
what
throw
happens
stuff in
now?
chronologically posted.
Oh, chronological, yeah.
And it becomes like a big, I agreed, it becomes a big mess
It's a cluster. It's really difficult to get any sort of information that way.
Right.
Like, I feel information is a little bit better when it's curated.
Yeah, but the problem is who gets to curate it. And
sure, I mean, who watches The Watchmen, right? But
right, and so maybe the best way to address that is just with open transparency. So Facebook opens up and lets you affect how it's curated. So you get to tell it what you want to prefer in your newsfeed.
You sort of can. Like, you already can sort of do that. It's difficult. Like, they don't make it easy.
Yeah.
Like, it would be nice for it to be easier. But I
make
mean,
it-
if we're
make
just
it
like going
way
to be
more-
like upvoting and downvoting stuff, you might as well just go to Reddit.
Oh yeah, not just upvoting and downvoting. What I'm talking about is go and tell it what sort of preferences, like all of the news aggregators, and you can tell it what feeds you like, what feeds you don't like. Have it so that you can tell it in its curated feed. This is something I want to see more of. This is something I want to see less of. And
see what I would
there's
like.
a little bit of
I
that,
think
but-
I think what I'd rather see them do, and this is me sort of being utopian Dave for a moment, is that they try to present a balanced feed. Because the thing with letting people decide what they get and what they don't get is that they only get things that they want to see, and they don't necessarily see dissenting opinions.
Right.
So this is problematic with the internet just generally. People segment into small groups. Like, people believe that the internet being as open as it is that you're going to get more interaction with people that you disagree with, but in fact the opposite's actually true. right? So people who, and I'm just going to use political leanings just for a quick example. People on the right, they're only going to get their conservative news feed, and people on the left are probably only going to get their, left-leaning news feed, right? And you're going to get a little bit, you're going to get some people in the middle who get a little bit of both,
right.
But the people who are only getting the conservative news feed now have a truth that is shaped by conservative news sources, and people who are only getting their left-leaning news feed are only, their truth is shaped by that. And this becomes problematic, and that this is the type of thing that's going to create extremists and zealots, because it pushes them further and further away from each other and the center.
Right. So is the solution to that just simply talking more about that very mechanic that talking about, like, I tend to be right-leaning, I tend to like right-leaning ads, things, just being aware and cognizant of the fact that my feed is often very right-leaning, and just having lots more open discussion about there's another side to these stories. There are other opinions out there.
Yeah, I think that works well for people who are self-aware enough to recognize that they have this bias. Not everyone does, right? And that's the problem. I actually, I think if we're gonna pick something, I'd almost rather, like, if they didn't want to be like, oh, we're gonna present a balanced feed, you only get things you don't want to see. You can get stuff you want to see from anywhere. Just show me stuff that disagrees with my point of view. That's the Facebook I want. That's what we should build. We should build a news aggregator that shows you the exact opposite of the things you want to see.
I'm fine with that as long as it's intelligent arguments.
Well, there's no guarantee of that on the internet.
Right? That's the problem.
Right? I mean, regardless of who writes it. I mean, you can limit it to accredited news sources, but so many people discount those as being intelligent.
Yeah, that's a whole different problem.
Right, and then in today's modern age, what's the news source? Is it just newspapers and TV? Is it blogs? How big does a blog have to be before we can take it seriously? Right,
and even the series, how, like, everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
When do you stumble down and so. Yeah.
Anywho.
So Sarah says the problem is no one believes facts anymore. It's fake news.
Yeah, no one believes things that don't fit their worldview. Everyone, like, if you see an article that fits your worldview, regardless of how ridiculous it is,
right,
you will believe it without fact checking. Everyone's guilty of it, right? And then oftentimes you will repost it just because it fits your worldview. And the exact opposite is true. If it doesn't fit your worldview, and I mean, like not even a little bit, you will just dismiss it out of hand. Well, that's clearly false, right? Like, whatever it happens to be, if it doesn't, if it disagrees with you. If there's something where you're like, maybe, those are the kinds of articles I think that people will actually try to research. That sounds like that could be true, but I feel like it's wrong. I'm going to Google it.
Right.
Right. And I think that's what you need to find, is that happy medium of articles that push people just enough to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is no one wants to think about it, and I get it. I'm not, saying that I'm
thinking's
not
hard
guilty
work,
of it, but.
And quite frankly, there's too many people out there that just can't do it.
Yeah. Anywho, that's been the gist of it.
That's the gist of these things this
is
week.
Episode number 5-ish. I've lost count because I forgot to upload everything last week. Yeah, so I don't know where we're at. Anyways, if you're watching this on YouTube, check us out every Wednesday live, facebook.com/Bourbon and Zeppelins, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. You can find links to everything and old episodes. You can find the old episodes on YouTube, but you can find the old stuff also on our website, bourbonandzeppelins.com. Anyways, for Bourbon and Zeppelins, I'm David.
I'm Jeremy.
We will see you next time.
See ya.